I'm Bob, and I collect stamps. Welcome back. This is Bob Collects Stamps, and I may be canceled, but I'm Bob. Jeff, a good friend of mine and interested third party, has been watching these videos and listening to the podcast. Hi, Jeff. And sent me a very excellent question, asking if I'd do an episode on it someday. Today's the day, it seems. Paraphrasing, Jeff asked how cancellation affects the value of stamps. Well, the short answer is it depends. The slightly longer answer is that most stamp collectors seem to prefer stamps like this German plover stamp that are unused. This is especially true of topical collectors who are more interested in the picture on the stamp than the use of the stamp. Not all collectors do, but enough of us do that uncanceled copies of stamps are more sought over than canceled copies. Second, most stamps are canceled. There's simply more of them around, so finding uncanceled stamps is anywhere from slightly to much, much more difficult. The long answer is it depends. First, a couple of quick definitions and some history, and then we can do that answer thing. We'll start with the question, what is a stamp? Sounds a little silly. Like pornography, we all think we know a stamp when we see one. I'll let that slide a bit and say that for our purposes in this video, a stamp is an adhesive label that acts as a receipt for the service of delivering a piece of mail. Just like a ticket to a film or concert, you buy the service, whether it's music or a movie or delivery of mail, and they give you a piece of paper that you could turn in to get your music or movie or postal service. You can even use stamps as gift certificates. You can hand someone a stamp and they can redeem it for postal service instead of you doing it. So you'll go to the post office, pay for your postal service, and they give you these little adhesive pieces of paper, receipts, that you can give back to them to get the service. The first adhesive postage stamp was issued in 1840, and when the system of these postage stamps was being set up, they were already worrying about people turning in the stamps, getting the mailing service, and someone else turning around and using that same stamp to get the service again without paying. So they came up with the idea of obliterating the stamp. Since it was not a good idea to add explosives and literally obliterate these stamps, they instead turned to a heavy rubber or cork obliterator. These obliterators were just rubber or cork stamps, like a rubber stamp today, that were inked and stamped on top of the adhesive stamp when it was turned in at the post office. And what they obliterated was the value of the stamp for further service. Adhesive stamps told the Postal Service it had gotten paid, and the obliterated stamp said the Postal Service was used for the value of the receipt. They were dipped in ink or an ink pad was used, and they were just obliterated the design of the stamp, making it easily recognizable as used. Of course, they made a mistake with the first stamp and first obliterator. You can see on this penny black, the first postage stamp, that the stamp is printed in black. And the obliterator, in this case a Maltese cross, is in red. Unfortunately, the formula for the red ink allowed the red to be washed off. The black ink doesn't wash off, but you could, with a bit of work, take the obliteration off and reuse the stamp. Why would anyone do that for a penny stamp? Well, these are 1840 pennies. The average farmer earned 20 pennies or less a day, and it wasn't an 8-hour day, so it took at least 30 minutes to earn a penny. How much do you earn in half an hour? Would it be worth washing a few stamps for? It was worth washing stamps to many people, but the postal authorities quickly caught on and issued new stamps printed in red and changed the ink on the obliterators to black. The black was still harder to wash off than the red, so your stamp image would now disappear faster than the obliterator's mark. And that seems to be pretty much the reason cancellations today are mostly printed in black ink. Tradition from that early experience. You can find blue and red and green postmarks and cancellations, but they're much more common in black. Here are a few examples of obliterated stamps. And here is a version of what today we call a cancellation or a postmark. We use those terms interchangeably, but technically they are different parts of the mark you see here. First, the cancellation. That's the old obliteration mark. It's meant to hit the stamp and void or cancel or obliterate its value as redeemable for postal service in the future. Today, they're mostly lines, but can be wavy, straight, have words among the lines, or simply be words or pictures, just about anything that marks the stamp as used. The postmark is the part with the postal information on it. Classically a circle, it includes the city, date, sometimes the time, and other information about how the piece of mail entered the postal system. Sometimes the postmark can be the cancel as well, like when there's a bunch of stamps across a cover, and sometimes it only hits the envelope. There are today collectors of cancellations. Most will collect the whole envelope, or cover as it's called in philatelic jargon. Many of us especially collect first day covers. These are envelopes, often with a special cancellation, that were canceled and postmarked on the first day and in the place the stamp was first issued. There are other specialized collectors of cancellations that are just on the stamp, though they are preferred to be on the cover too. Sometimes they're just not available that way. The variety of cancels is extraordinary. First, you can see on this penny red that the replacement for the penny black in the washing problem, the cancellation, has a number in the middle. This is the post office designation. In this case, the post office is in Manchester, England. Scotland, Wales, and Ireland all had their own design, and each post office had a separate number. Of course, number 1, the main post office in London, produced the most canceled mail, so theirs is the easiest and least valuable to find. Here are a variety of stamps with the same design, first issued in the United States in 1903, that have varied cancellations. Some of these are less common than others, and so more sought after. Some particular cancellation marks can make a used stamp much, much more rare, and therefore more valuable than an unused stamp. There's another kind of cancellation, though, that for some turns a perfectly good stamp into something to throw away. Not all of us feel that way, but many do. That cancellation is a CTO, or canceled to order cancellation. It takes the form of a postmark and is either pre-printed on the stamp or stamped on the stamp while it's still in the sheet before being sold. Starting in the 1960s, stamp values started going up. More collectors were starting collections, and many countries began trying to earn hard currency by selling these stamps to dealers who would pass them on eventually to collectors. Many of the countries to do this were in the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe, but North Korea, several of the newly independent African and Arab states, also got in the act. These CTOs flooded the market with stamps from strange and wonderful places where a stamp collector would be hard-pressed to find a postally used stamp. A lot of them were produced outside the country they were supposedly issued from, with designs that had nothing to do with the country, and they were never intended or could be used for postage. Essentially, these stamps were just stickers pretending to be stamps, which is why many stamp collectors today don't and won't collect them. And it's one case where you can find a stamp from one of the CTO countries that has not been canceled, and you may have something very rare. One of the ways to recognize CTOs usually is when the postmark is in the corner. When they canceled these on the full sheet, they would want to hit 4 stamps with each cancellation, so the cancels would appear in each corner. Now, the term CTO, or canceled to order, has gotten a very bad rap among stamp collectors. This is a little unfortunate because technically, if you ask your local postal clerk to hand stamp something, it's canceled to order. If you get a first day cover, it's canceled to order. But most people ignore that, and many say that all CTOs are bad. It's mostly a semantic issue that they haven't fully thought through, and almost everybody knows what they mean anyway. So, Jeff, as you can see, the long answer to your question is, it depends. All right, keep collecting, collect what you want. Don't follow anybody else's rules, except have fun and take care of yourself and your stamps. Thanks for watching.